Moose. After a relentless high noon showdown, your character, the cowboy with no name, just killed Travis's character, the outlaw with no name. What do you do?
I told you to apologize to my mule.
Should a character fall in combat and die as a result of damage, the character should receive a death saving throw. I get a death saving throw.
You don't get a death saving throw.
It says right here in the book, I get a death saving throw.
Let me see that. Oh no. You do get a death saving throw. Well, guess what? It's not gonna be easy.
Well, I'm gonna take that chance.
Good.
What? That. Yeah!
I live again!
You know, the way I got it figured, there are two types of people in this world.
I killed you too quickly last time.
It was only a 10 silver piece mule.
Yeah. That was my mule.
When I tell most people that I'm into board gaming, this is what they think we play. But sorry, this isn't what I do. That's how I roll. I started reading by reading comic books, like a lot of my gaming buddies did. That was a shared interest, and one of the ads that was always in the back of the issues of the comics was like Dungeons and Dragons. And it was always the ads for the RPG. And I was always really interested in wanting to play that. And that was also about the time that the Dungeons & Dragons cartoon was airing on TV, which I just thought was super duper cool. However, that was also about the time where the whole Dungeons & Dragons, demonic pursuits, everybody considered it to be evil. It was a satanic game. And, I had a very conservative part of my family that would tell me that, you can't play those games, they're evil. In fact, I remember being told specifically that the game manuals were so evil that if you threw them into the fireplace, they wouldn't burn. And I just remember, I think I was in 3rd, 4th grade about that time, and even then I was like, what? So Mom and Dad made a deal with me. They were like, well, no, you're going to play the Dungeons & Dragons game, but how about this? That time TSR had the Marvel Universe, the Marvel Superheroes role-playing game. Some of you may remember it was in a yellow box. And I got my start playing Marvel Superheroes. That was my first role-playing experience. And gosh, I had so much fun playing that doggone game. And that was pretty much from there. From there, it turned into the Star Wars role-playing game that came out in the late 80s, the West End Games D6 version. And then I got into the game I played the most, pretty much from my sophomore year through half of college, and that was Battletech. And it wasn't a role-playing game, it was just like a tactical battle simulator game. Well, I started, buying a lot of the Dungeons & Dragons source books. So that was back when it was still 2nd edition. And after a while, my buddies and I started finally getting to play Dungeons & Dragons. And we did it really very hit and miss at first because none of my buddies had really gotten into that scene before. But then when I started working at a movie theater in college, every Sunday night after close became D&D night. And we ran campaigns for, 2 or 3 years off and on. My boss and his brother were both D&D gamers from, back in the day. They were back in the 1st edition. And so it was just a natural fit. And so we played a whole lot of D&D. Then we kind of slipped away because we graduated and kind of went our separate ways, my friends and I. And about that time, we really started getting into the whole online gaming scene. I never did World of Warcraft, stuff like that, but lots of Halo, lots of just video games. And that was easy because we were separated. So we could play with each other online. But then that kind of got old, and honestly, I got sick of getting my butt kicked at all those online games, Halo, little kids just trash talking me all the time. My ego couldn't handle it anymore. So then I started looking for some other source of entertainment, and I got back to, really getting back involved with the idea of playing with other people face to face. Getting back into the whole board gaming scene, and really, I went and bought what at the time was the newest version of BattleTech. And I bought that, and I was like, man, I just enjoy these games so much. And I just kept playing them. And then my local game store, I was always going in there and looking around. And mainly at that time, I was just buying different books because I was reading books like crazy. And I'd always go through the game side and look around and browse, but it was just look, but don't touch. I wasn't brave enough to spend $50 on a board game. Are you kidding me? $50? And eventually I pulled the trigger. And I think the first game I bought there was, for like a lot of people, Settlers of Catan. And got it, took it home, played it with a couple friends, even played it with my wife, who amazingly didn't hate it. And just went from there. And then I went, for about the last 5 years, I've been on an absolute board gaming binge. I've been buying everything I can think of, and honestly, bought stuff I haven't got to play yet. But that's where I am. I'm back in the face-to-face scene. I love the friendship. I like games that are more about storytelling, more about games that make adventures, like Eldritch Horror. I like that game because you're globetrotting around the planet and you get into all sorts of predicaments and situations while trying to, stop the end of the world. Games like that afterwards, you sit back and you realize that, hey, we may not have won that game, but we told a story. And, I remember one of the first times we played it was immediately, right off the bat, my character was betrayed and stabbed in the back by one of my teammates who had been possessed by a demon lord and had to kill me in the first turn. So I was dead before I did anything. I never picked up the die. But you know what? I remember that. And, that's the kind of stuff that when I'm playing games, I just love. I love the storytelling aspect of games. That's what I'm drawn into.
The aspect of gaming that I like the most is really sitting around with a bunch of guys or gals or whoever's with me, and just sitting back and having fun. They are games that we play. There's two genres. There's competitive and cooperative. And when we play competitive games against each other, if I win, great. I'm playing to win, but I'm not cutthroat. I don't cry myself to sleep if I lose. Although nobody likes to lose, it happens. It's part of it. Lately, I really find myself drawn to cooperative games, stuff where we're working together to beat the game. One of the games I really like is Dead of Winter here, where you're working together to stop zombies. Whenever you're working together as a team and building something and just, trying to survive the game situation, for people who aren't gamers, they look at that and be like, well, why would you do that? Why is that interesting? And then once I get them to sit down and play, they're like, wow, we didn't know board games could be like this. We always thought our board games were like Sorry or Monopoly. It's you pick up a die, you roll it, and you move. And that's pretty much what you do. That takes no skill, it takes no thought, and it's no fun. And at the end of the night, no matter what, win or lose, we lose way more of these cooperative games than we win. At the end of the night, we've had a lot of fun doing it. My favorite gaming memory comes from an epic game of Twilight Imperium 3rd Edition that we were playing. You know, if you play it out to its logical conclusion, the game could take 7, 8, 9 hours. Well, we were about 6 hours into this game, and it's a game of space exploration and territorial expansion and combat and politics and all sorts of fun stuff. Well, I had built up what I considered to be basically an unstoppable swarm of little bitty fighters. I called them TIE fighters, even though that's, you know, IP infringement, whatever. But 3/4 of the way through the game, I was getting ready to unleash my doom upon the galaxy. I mean, I had this thing in the bag. I had planned it out, every eventuality, everything. But the part of this game that is unique, and it's what set these kind of games apart from what most people think games are, is the fact that you can pass laws in like this simulated Senate, the political process, and it affects the way the game is played. And so I had this massive swarm of TIEs, little starfighters, snub fighters, and I was ready to unleash them. And at the last second, they voted a law that said you may have no more than 2 of them at any given time. Well, I was sitting there with 30-something swarm fighters, gonna win, gonna roll the table. Lost it all instantly. And I don't remember what exactly my initial reaction was, other than like extreme nausea and just my jaw hitting the table, because I literally, after 6.5 hours of tedious planning and, you know, perfect, you know, I had it all right there in front of me. The galaxy was mine. And then it was gone, just like that. That's one of my favorite stories. For a while, my board gaming with my wife consisted of, like, you know, Skip-Bo, playing cards, and then when I got into it, I got to Ticket to Ride, which is a great game. I really like it. You know, her belief in gaming with me is we play it until I beat her at it, and then she wants no part of it, because then I figured it out. She'll play games with us, but only really if my girl's involved. I mean, she's allowed me to go crazy on these games, and that's wonderful. I really appreciate that. My daughters really like playing games like King of New York, King of Tokyo, Hey, That's My Fish. It's just something we can really get into. And even some of my more advanced games, you know, even if they don't understand, I will let them, you know, play with various miniatures, and we just make up games. You know, I want them to be creative. I don't want them to get locked into thinking that little games like Sorry is all there is, like all their friends do. But I think I'm blessed in getting to do that with my kids. You know, I think being interested in genre stuff like we are, and you know, gaming and anything movie and dorkish, you know, one of the things I really started enjoying tied in with this, although it's not the focus. I mean, I haven't got to go to Gen Con like some people, but I've got to go to like Planet Comic Con in Kansas City for 5 straight years. And there I've got to, you know, use my podcast as an in to talk to a couple of celebrities about stuff. Got to have my picture made with George Takei, Sulu from Star Trek. And the whole highlight of that whole thing was when he looked at our podcasting shirt that said Tales of the Smoking Chihuahua on it. And he said in that deep voice, which I'm going to butcher here, it was, "What is Tales of the Smoking Chihuahua?" And I told him what it was. It's a podcast. And he went, "Oh, sounds interesting." And at that point, you know, we took a cheesy picture with him. But, you know, that was cool, meaning Sulu. And then the next year we had a picture made with Shatner, and, you know, he's kind of a big person. And it was, you know, neat meeting Captain Kirk, and you know, it was fun. We've been recording it every Sunday night for about 4 years now, and it's called Tales of the Smoking Chihuahua. We're a movie podcast, but we don't focus on that. We're really focusing on anything and everything to do with pop culture, you know, and stuff that's not directly related to gaming, but, you know, Star Wars, you know, the zombie craze, like Dead of Winter over here, you know, anything like that, we're talking about. And I really think that lends itself a lot into, you know, the whole gaming identity of people being not just gamers, but fitting in with all different aspects of, you know, of life. We talk about books, music, all sorts of stuff. And even now and then, when we need a fill-in episode for something, I've done what I call the Tales of the Nerdy Chihuahua, which, you know, the typical gamer stereotype is that we're all a bunch of nerds, and, you know, bring it on. I love that identity because it's true, and you know what? So what? I don't care. but I do little podcasts where I review specific games. I did one for Sentinels of the Multiverse, which is a superhero storytelling game, which I know is very popular. And I've done one over the Alien Legendary game. I've done one over Eldritch Horror. Just different games. I just specifically talk about those. One of the things I'm most proud of is recently, in the last couple months, I've started up what I call Game-a-paloozas, where I invite, anybody of my friends who want to come over, I'm more than welcome, just a whole day of gaming. Luckily, my wife allows me to do this. We play any number of games, big games, a big 6-hour game of Eldritch Horror on the very first time, and then we break it up with party games, and then we finish the night with silly stuff like Cards Against Humanity. One night we did a Magic tournament, and people bought in, and we just split a big deck or a box of cards. It's fun. We have food. We just make a whole day of it. And, there's no real gaming conventions in our area specifically for that. So my thought is just to, I've got a house that's it's big enough to have people come over to play. Might as well do that. So Game-a-Paloozas is something I'm really proud of, and I plan on having another one coming up.
First experience was at Boy Scout camp. Some of the older guys were playing Dungeons and Dragons, and they let me sit in on a session, kind of planted a seed for some of that future gaming. In the late 90s, I got to play Magic for the first time, and it kind of got me hooked into the local community. Probably strategic gaming, something that requires a social interaction. I feel like if I couldn't play a game by myself, I want to be involved with someone else in that activity. Definitely the social aspect. I think a game that rewards strategic play is up there. Creativity is, if a game rewards creativity, I'm definitely excited about that. I probably favor the social the most. If a game requires a little bit from each of those different areas, then I think I'd just naturally be drawn to that. I'm a technician at a local engineering firm. Part of my job requires that I communicate with our customers to be able to think on my feet if they have a question or if a scenario comes up. Having interactions with different types of people throughout the years of gaming has allowed me to be able to think on my feet, to know how to be diplomatic but yet reasonable. And I think through some of the friendships, it's actually opened up some opportunities. Currently, I'm really the only gamer in our family. I have a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old. So they don't really understand what Daddy does in his free time, but they like to look at some of the cards or to look at my miniatures. My wife does like to play card games like Phase 10 or Monopoly Go, some of those just small games. She likes dice games. I can definitely get her to play, but probably none of the more geeky stuff that I like. With my kids, I don't know. I mean, they're probably so different than I was when I was a kid. Gaming, I would say, has greatly impacted my life. Some of the longest lasting friendships in my life have been from one game or another. And some of those friendships may be skin deep, some of them are to the bone, if you will.
I'll just painting this War Machine model. It's a model by Privateer Press. It was a metal miniature. Starts off just bare metal. The first coat on it was of a black primer. Putting a primer on a model allows the paint to stick better. It also gives you, if you have darker color, it kind of allows the paint to naturally give shadows or perceived depth. I usually paint on black. Some models are served better with a light gray or a white if they have brighter colors. It just kind of depends on the model and how much detail is needed on it. I like to paint a test model and then from there base my other models in the series off that test model. Painting's generally been pretty therapeutic for me.
As you approach the pathway to the house, the main entrance is before you. What are you going to do?
All right, I'm going to step up to the door and I will check it for traps.
Okay, roll your perception.
4 plus 11, so 15.
15, okay. You don't see any traps obvious, but the door, you can tell through the cracks in it that it's barred from the inside. You have no way of opening it easily.
I've been at it probably 25 to 20 years after I got with him so I could actually do some gaming.
I started gaming when I was a little kid, I guess. I pulled out miniatures on the living room floor and had these giant battles.
Yeah.
She kind of did the same thing.
I don't remember any of them.
That you've been at it your whole life.
Yeah.
Because you would get to help roll the dice, you would get to move the characters. Yeah, you would get to do quite a bit.
It all started when looking through a Sears Christmas wish book back in '82, I think. And there was a little tiny blurb for a game based on Star Trek. And I knew I liked Star Trek and I got it. And it was called Starfleet Battles. And it's just been game on since.
Basically, I guess I've been playing a little bit of other games before I knew him, but to really get into the tabletop sort of games like these, got into the D&D big time. It was fun.
My first character when I was about 12 or 13, and I got to do a ranger for a game with some of their friends.
I played a kitty cat.
She started out as familiar.
Yeah.
She was actually pretty good as a Nodwick type of character where she got to be the party loot carrying person, but she enjoyed it because her attention span was really short at first.
My favorite gaming experience was you come across a room with a couple monsters in it, one of them being a construct thing, and we said, okay, she just rolled a...
I was playing a paladin, and I created the first monster and turned it into a
pile of chicken
breast, basically. And the other one was a construct, and it came over and ate the dead chicken. We left it alone for the night while we went and rested up.
And she rolled 20 on animal handling and managed to convince the other monster to join her.
Mm-hmm.
My most memorable game session is where it was before we were married and everything. Was just off the whim, we decided to roll up high-level characters, level 12 at the time, and go through this high-level adventure. And we just we were getting spanked left and right. We were barely alive. At the final battle, the beholder comes out down a hallway and immediately casts Ray of Death. And naturally, I'm playing the magic user. Best chance, I roll the 1. I'm dead. Cleric dies. Fighter makes it, and the thief just takes off running. And the fighter is on a ledge, and the beholder's coming towards him. He knows he can't beat it, so he decides, well, I'm going to jump off. And he lands, hits the ground, and after all the damage is done, he has like 2 hit points. The DM tells everyone else to leave, and the fighter had a sword of 3 wishes. And he said, okay, what are you going to do? And then he discusses it for a while, and then he brings everyone back, and he says, well, you're walking down this trail, and you see off in the distance, you see a cave. And we're thinking, this is way too familiar. What's happened? Turned out, the fighter, as he's laying there, just about to be devoured by a purple worm, said, I wish this week never happened. Boom.
In cake decorating, you start looking at, oh, how can I pull off this design? Like if I've got a dragon, how can I work this into this cake? Does it sit on top? Does it climb on top? Then I've got to think about how I want to set up a scene. You don't just plop something on a cake. You try to set up so that it looks, oh, cool, that's part of it, and it makes a lot of sense. You want action going into a cake. It also opens to my mind to, oh, how can I pull off something like the TARDIS for Doctor Who? Or I just recently did a little research and I found out how to do the Stargate. Little things you wouldn't have thought about. How do you pull these things off? And you start looking at materials and ideas and things that you can work in that you never would have thought of before. Yeah. There, goes. That's how those fit. Okay, I have to let that set up before I can do much more to it because it's still too soft. Paintbrush. I kind of have to turn him so I can see him.
Sometimes I wonder why you act this way to me. In my life, I love you more than anyone could love a precious.
You can kind of see why it takes hours to complete one.
You realize that that was the luckiest roll I've ever seen.
16, 17, 22. 22? 27.
Any trouble, boy?
No, old man. Thought I was having a problem with my adding. But it's all good now.
Sparkling jewels that cast back the light. Run the risk of transfixing one sport for the night. When the doors are flung open by the heat of the vice.